Good morning. It's Anita, and I am a lifestyle and business coach. And today we're talking about networking and getting out of your comfort zone. And I am delighted to introduce my guest, which is Victoria. And I'll let Victoria tell you a little bit more about what she does. Over to you.
Hi, morning. Thanks for having me, Anita. My name is Victoria Lofthouse. I am the proud owner and founder of a virtual assistance business called No Drama Delegation. I help and support small business owners to get more done and turn their dreams and ideas into reality, really.
Wonderful. Victoria is also my BA. She's got me out of some sticky points in the past. She's my go-to lady. So if anyone's looking for some support and some help with all of their admin, absolutely all of the stuff that a BA does, Victoria does it, but she does it better than anybody else.
Oh, thank you, lovely. Oh, right, that's really kind of you.
Networking. So I know you've recently been to a wonderful networking group hosted by one of our fellow Rockstar coaching friends. I've got the pleasure of interviewing next week, Vicky Stanton. But before we talk about that, obviously you work remotely and you work on your own.
Yeah.
Have you done any, before this most recent event, which was, I believe, the first one that you've been to in a long, long time, tell me about networking prior to that, because I know you had, it did kind of put you off. So what happened?
Yeah. Well, in my previous life, if you like, in an employed position, networking was not something that was ever part of my job role. So when I was made redundant from that role and set up on my own, my first instinct was I've got to get out there, I've got to network locally and online. And I went to a local networking group, which was fine, but it just wasn't for me. I didn't gel with the group. It was very structured. The meetings were very structured in the sense that you got blocks of time to do things, and it all felt a bit staged, I suppose. And it just wasn't for me, mainly because I was kind of getting in my own way, I think, in terms of, I think lots of female business owners and entrepreneurs, and I guess some male business owners don't like talking about themselves, don't like putting themselves out there for whatever reason. And it was very much out of my comfort zone. And I kind of had that one experience and thought, well, that's not for me, ticked it off my list and just thought, I'll just stick to doing what I'm doing at home online, and that's totally fine. And I don't need to do that. I've done that. It's not for me.
I love the honesty.
It was all a bit scary.
Yeah, I love the honesty. And that kind of, what you've just described there happens so often. It's so common. It is absolutely ridiculous that people will go along to one networking meeting or maybe two, and there's all sorts of things wrong with it for them. One is they are getting in their own way, and quite often they don't feel confident enough to go out there and present themselves in that arena, because they are comfortable doing what they're doing, and it is stepping outside of your comfort zone. And also, if networking groups have got to be a good fit for you, they've got to be inspiring and uplifting, and you've got to go with an intention and with a plan, but you've also got to come away from there feeling really motivated and ready to hit the day. And unfortunately, this does happen quite often in the networking world. People go to a meeting, they don't feel inspired, they certainly don't feel very welcomed, and they get to run a mile, and your experience has sort of proven the kind of thing that I've been talking about recently and will be talking about a lot in the coming months. Because it is, if you go to a network, I'm not saying a bad meeting, but if you go to a networking meeting that isn't for you, doesn't sit well with you, doesn't motivate you or uplift you, or makes you feel really, really uneasy, then you are going to run a mile and never ever want to go out networking again.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to sort of say at this point, all networking groups are all very different. You can go, you can be, for instance, there could be an organisation that run them in all different localities. Every single group will be different. Every meeting will be different. And I think that's kind of all to do with the people that are in the room. And you're right, it doesn't just affect women, it affects men as well, you know. If they've never done that before, it's almost an unnatural thing to have to go out there and stand and present you and your business you're really proud of in a room full of strangers.
Yeah, it was totally out of my comfort zone, and I still have an issue with standing up in front of people and saying, look at me, I can do this for your business, I can help support you with that, or just talking about my business in general, because it's just not something that I've ever done or ever had to do. And it was only because of the fear of setting up on my own without that safety blanket of a regular income, or different job prospects, that forced me out of my comfort zone the first time. And then, like you say, you get into that rut of working on your own in your little office at home or in a co-working space or wherever that might be, and you become very isolated. And that doesn't help the situation, because you're almost not forced to go out and speak to somebody face to face about your business and what you can help them achieve.
Exactly.
So yeah,
I think as well, I think for many, there's been a massive increase in people that are working from home, or people that are doing flexible working hours within their own businesses. And they do tend to find that they sort of get into their office, head down, get their day's work done. The only people that they talk to are clients, or sometimes if they're fortunate enough to be in some of the groups that we're both in, where we're talking now and again to like-minded business people. That doesn't always happen, and it's not something that happens even on a weekly basis. So to get out, I think one of the biggest things for me with regard to networking, yes, there's a business element to it, because you're going to pick up more business and you're going to be able to give more business to other people and collaborate. But I think one of the biggest things for me is actually being able to get out there and make connections face to face and actually speak to real live people over coffee, rather than just sort of on an online basis. And it can be a really lonely world working for yourself within your own environment. So getting out there and talking to other people, making those connections is invaluable, I think. And it also helps, I think, with your confidence.
Absolutely. I totally built this networking thing up after I'd been the first time and ticked it off my list, and I've done that, it's not for me. I totally built it up in my own mind to be way more scary than it actually was. When I went to the meeting a few weeks ago, I came away with all those things that you've just mentioned. So I came away feeling inspired and motivated, and I'd spoken to some amazing business women, but also chatted with them about stuff they have going on, and are they having a holiday, and not business related stuff. It was very informal, and it was just a lovely group, and it motivated me, but also it helped my confidence, because I then felt inspired to go back. It wasn't as bad. I thought to myself when I was driving home, oh, actually I really enjoyed that. I stepped out of my comfort zone. Yes, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad that I did. And I will continue to go to that group, and hopefully now start to venture into other local groups. But I know in my own mind now what type of group I like and what type of meeting I like, so I will specifically look for groups with that sort of structure, rather than trying to force myself into a box, if you like, of, well, that's a networking meeting, so I must go.
Yes, definitely, definitely, and I think you're absolutely right. You know, so going back to this new group that you found, what made
Yeah.
you get out of your comfort zone again this time round and go along to this new group?
A couple of reasons, really. Mainly, the first one was what you just mentioned about being in my office on my own, not getting those connections and not having any company
Yeah.
and other people to reach out to. I love networking online, and it's where the majority of my business comes from, which is fab. But sometimes you do need and want that connection on a face-to-face platform. And the lady that runs the group, Vicky, who you've just mentioned there, is lovely, and she inspired me and she filled me with confidence, and it was just easy. All the barriers that were in my own mind were sort of removed. I didn't then have a reason why I shouldn't go. And like I say, it was just a lovely group.
And the format from what you went to from the networking meeting you went to before, was it a lot more informal? Do you think was it as structured or as rigid as the other one? You know, how
there was still a structure. The meetings that I'd been to previously were breakfast meetings, were very early in the morning, and very structured. This one was over a lunch, a lovely lunch. And there was still structure, but there was also a development side to it as well. So we were challenged, if you like, if that's the right word, to have different conversations about how we could collaborate with other people in the room, rather than it just being, I know some people that I've spoken to that also shy away from networking don't like it because it's quite salesy. And there's not that personal connection. So there was the opportunity just to chat about how we could collaborate with one another, and it was quite informal. And then there was still a time where I had to stand up and present my business, but I kind of saw that as a good thing. Because it is something I need to do more of, but it was done in such a way that I didn't feel at all uncomfortable. And we had a lovely lunch and a chat, and then there was a presentation by another young lady who's part of the group, and again that was all about developing, and it was all very much around business development along with the networking, rather than it purely just being we're here to network and that's it.
Network, yeah, exactly. I think there's a real fine line when it comes to networking. And I've been, as many people know, I was a week off of my 6-year badge with the biggest networking organisation of the world, with BNI, for just short of six years. And, I went along to it initially as a networking newbie. And then by the time that I retired, I think is the right phrase, in September, my confidence had grown, my ability to speak, my ability to train and help others, just absolutely went through the roof. And I will always thank my experiences within my own networking group for allowing me to do that. And for me, it was a massive self-development, absolutely huge. And I think for me, that was bigger than the business side of it.
Yes.
And I think what I'm trying to share with people now is, you're very, very right. Networking isn't just about going out and selling. Selling to the room is a big no-no anyway. But it is about making those connections. It is about development and self-development. And I think if you can find a group that sits really well with you, where you have got that element of learning and self-development and challenges, an awful lot of networking groups are doing that now. So they'll have, they have their guest speaker slot, and, and it will be, giving you a challenge. It will be about helping you with your planning in your business, or, key areas in business. I've been to somewhere you might have, an IFA talking about pensions and stuff that we might not think about day to day. but it kind of challenges us to think about everything else that we should be thinking about in business, especially if you're not a numbers person, you know, but then you've got an accountant, for instance, doing a really good presentation on making your life easier with basic accounts, for instance, you know, or even for you being, you know, being able to talk about prioritising your daily to-do lists and time management and productivity. You know, to hear that from someone that does it all day, every day is really, really inspiring to the rest of the room. So I think networking now is changing, and yes, it is about picking up business. It's about giving business. You know, it's about building relationships, who you can collaborate with, and equally developing as a person and as a business person and picking up some new skills as well. You know, so I'm really, really glad that you've had a more positive experience, you know, within Vicky's group, which doesn't surprise me because she's awesome and she's lovely.
She is.
So within you said you came away, you know, feeling uplifted and inspired. Are those groups, Vicky's groups, are they weekly or are they monthly? Do they fit better in with your diary?
The group that I attended is monthly, which works better for me in terms of my workload, but also I can kind of justify, if you like, if that's the right word, having a whole day out of the office. It's also like, yes, I'm having a whole day out of my office, but I'm still working on my business.
Exactly.
I think for lots of people that I've spoken to, there is that guilt about going every week or committing to going to networking meetings every week. I know for lots of people, attending a weekly thing is what fits for them or what works for them, and that's fab. But for me, once a month was just perfect.
I think what you need to do is kind of reframe that you're not, you know, and for anyone that's watching this that does have that guilt about having that day off, you know, they're having a day on their business outside of their normal business practices, and you know, and what you can learn in that one day, you know. So you've got your travel time, and I absolutely love time on my own in my car traveling to a meeting, because it kind of gives me thinking space and thinking time. That's invaluable for anyone in business. But also, you know, within the realms of being at a networking meeting, you don't know who you're going to meet. You know, you really don't. And it isn't, you know, a lot of people do feel fraudulent that they're bunking off work because they're going networking. But if you're going with a plan in your head that you're going to help others, that you're going to share your knowledge and expertise and what it is that you do, ultimately, you know, it is business networking karma. What goes around comes around, and it does come back to you. Rather than thinking that you're just having, you know, a day out on a jolly. And there are people that will, you know, go to the opening of an envelope when it comes to networking. They'll go to every single networking event. They will be networking all day, every day. And, you know, they very rarely get an awful lot of work done. But they do it from a social level. But I think something like the group that you've just described, you know, going to that, having one day out of your business a month away from your office, it's just a different working environment. And I think people that feel guilty, that's kind of what they've got to think. It's just a different working environment.
Yeah, totally. I think for having that day off or that day out of my business, I did feel guilty about it previously because and I know I've spoken to clients and various people that feel that when they're not doing something, then they're not being productive. If they're doing creative journaling or they're mapping something out, they're not being productive. Or if they're networking, they're not being productive. And I think for me personally, that stemmed from my days as being an employee.
Definitely.
Where been in the office 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, plan my own.
Because then as well,
when a revelation, and I know it's still something that people.
I think when you're an employee, it's completely different because you're answerable and you're accountable to somebody else.
Yeah.
And and many years ago, when I was in the corporate world, I mean, crikey, we're going back 21 years ago now. And but you had to be at your desk ready to start work at 9 o'clock, and you couldn't finish work a moment before 5 o'clock. Even 1 minute to 5, you still had to be working. Then 5 o'clock, down tools, and then go. And I've met an awful lot of employed people that are asked by their bosses to go networking, and for an awful lot of them, they see it as an excuse to get out the office. And some people, I'm not saying that about everybody, but sometimes employees will go networking, and it is it's an excuse to get out of the office for a couple of hours, or if they go to a breakfast meeting to finish work earlier on that day. But then there are people that are employed that go out networking that are really, really good at it, and they see the benefits of getting out there and meeting others. But that guilt that we all feel when it comes to, getting out of our office. When I used to go to B&I on a Thursday morning, that was a breakfast meeting. So I'd have to be there by 6 o'clock. So up and out there at 6. Because I took on sort of leadership team roles, quite often I was there till mid-morning. And I used to often feel really guilty because it might be lunchtime before I was back in my office. And I think, oh God, I've just had the morning out. But I'm kind of really good at reframing that and thinking I was actually being productive because I was working on my marketing because again, your networking colleagues are your sales team, they're your marketing team, they're people that are going to talk about you and hopefully recommend you and promote you to others, or indeed people in the room use you, especially doing what you do.
Yes.
Yours is quite a very, very easy service to recommend and refer to. So yeah, I think it's awesome that you've had this really, really good experience now with networking, and and that you're going to go more regularly now, and get out there and look for other groups. And I think just a suggestion, when you start looking for other networking groups to visit, there are so many that you can go to just to go and visit, see how they work. And obviously you've got lunchtime groups, you've got mid-morning groups, breakfast meetings don't work for everybody, and equally evening groups as well. So maybe have a look at some of the Chamber of Commerce, some of the bigger professional business organisations. They quite often host free networking events, and it's definitely worth sort of dipping your toe in different ponds, so to speak.
Yes, I'm going to give it a whirl. Now I've started, there'll be no stopping me.
Good. I think that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. And I'm going to pop a link to your page in the comments, so that if anyone wants to connect with you, they can. And go forth and have happy networking, Victoria.
Yay!
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.